I'm not going to talk to you about the attempted armed insurrection against Congress on Wednesday, and I'm not going to talk to you about today's impeachment proceedings. There are millions of people more knowledgeable and more eloquent who can speak on those subjects. There is one thing that came out today that I need to talk to you about because I am, let's say, uniquely qualified to speak on, because I have spent the last 5-6 years immersed in newspapers published between 1840 and 1868 or so. So I've seen the patterns of racial violence and the rhetoric surrounding it, propagating themselves throughout the decades and throughout the centuries to our current day. And I've seen how the rhetoric of today bears such a strong resemblance to the rhetoric of 1868 that there's virtually no difference aside from contemporary colloquialisms. Why am I bringing this up? Well, here's a video of a news conference put on by Canadian County Sheriff Chris West. Now, I need to clarify, because it can be confusing. He's not Canadian. He is the sheriff of Canadian County, Oklahoma. Again, the name is Chris West. I'm going to show you a 1.5-minute long clip from this press conference that he held purportedly to exonerate himself for his participation in this march on the U.S. Capitol building on Wednesday. Here it is.
It's a horrible time for our nation's country. Am I glad that I was able to go so that I could see the good parts of it? Yes. But I think it's important that I have this conference because, again, there are people that are saying things about me that are erroneous, and so I want to put that front and center. This is a photograph of myself that an individual pulled off of the internet. This is, I believe it was this last summer. I went to a news conference that Senator Jim Inhofe had here in Oklahoma City. I was called and asked by some people in Washington, D.C. if I would go to that press event in support of the senator, and I went to it, and this was a photograph that came from that. Matter of fact, while we were there that day, when the news event was over, which was on one topic, I asked some reporters to get together, and I asked the senator if he would stand with me, and I talked with the press in support of Senator Inhofe and talked about how much I appreciated his support of the MRAPs, mine-resistant ambush protection vehicles that were made available, and they help protect the deputies with the sheriff's office and the other people that are on our tactical team, because we can't afford to have armored vehicles. But because of the 1033 program that he supports, we were able to get equipment. So I pulled him over there, and we talked about how he supports law enforcement.
Did you catch that? It went by real quick, so I'll repeat it. He was talking about an MRAP program. That's M-R-A-P, Mine Resistant Ambush Protection. This is from Wikipedia. Mine Resistant Ambush Protected is a term for United States military light tactical vehicles produced as part of the MRAP program that are designed specifically to withstand improvised explosive device, IED, attacks and ambushes. The United States Department of Defense MRAP program began in 2007 as a response to the increased threat of IEDs during the Iraq War. From 2007 until 2012, the MRAP program deployed more than 12,000 vehicles in the Iraq War and war in Afghanistan. Here is a picture of an MRAP from Wikipedia. Here's a picture of another MRAP. This one's from an article that I'll link to below this video. The caption of this picture reads, police with armored vehicles advance on demonstrators who refused to disperse after curfew during a protest in Riverside, California on June 1st, 2020. So, why is Chris West talking about AMRAPs? That's the big question. Again, it went by real quick, so rewind, take another look. He pauses in his speech where he's supposedly exonerating himself for his participation in this noble, what does he call himself? A God-fearing Christian patriotic man of Oklahoma. He's explaining that he was there in Washington, D.C. as a patriot, as a supporter of Trump. And he didn't see any bad actors. He didn't participate in any rioting. And as he tells the story, he volunteers this information about how he went to D.C. in June of last year because another guy was in D.C. at the time. Republican Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma. And he took the opportunity to thank Senator James Inhofe for his efforts to get AMRAPs for local police departments. Mine-resistant, ambush protected. Military vehicles for use in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he's thanking Inhofe because otherwise he wouldn't have had the money. Local police departments can't afford MRAPs. But he went and he thanked him. And he told that story in the middle of his press conference where he was supposedly exonerating himself. Hey, you know what I didn't see on the streets of Washington, D.C. on Wednesday? MRAPs. I didn't see MRAPs of the type used to disperse Black Lives Matter protesters last June. I didn't see any of that. I didn't see rubber bullets. I didn't see shit. West thought this was a good idea. To tell that story, he thought that would be a crowd pleaser. Do you see the monstrous, overweening hypocrisy? Do you see the unbearable privilege, the white supremacy on display of which he is completely unaware? Blithely, arrogantly unaware. If you can't see that, I've got nothing to say to you. This ain't for you. If you can see that, if you can see the privilege, if you can see the hypocrisy, if you can see the blind white privilege, this is what I've been working for. This is why I've read all those newspapers. This is a manifestation of that same Jim Crow Reconstruction racial violence that has echoed, that has reverberated down the decades and the centuries to this day. This is possibly the best example I've ever seen that this country is constitutionally incapable of reckoning with its own history of racial violence. And if we don't do that, it will continue. If you can see that, please raise your voice. Tell people what you see. Call people out. Please.